On behalf of the National Park Service, we'd like to welcome you today to the Blackened Canteen ceremony. Each country remembers its fallen members on special days and in special ways. Here at Pearl Harbor, America remembers those who lost their lives on that fateful morning 74 years ago today. We meet to commemorate the tragic events of December 7th, 1941. Today, the National Park Service welcomes an old friend, Dr. Sugano. Dr. Sugano is a remarkable humanitarian from Shizuoka, Japan. Dr. Sugano comes here annually for many years. He recognizes 23 fallen American airmen and 2,000 of his countrymen who lost their lives on another tragic event, that on June 20th, 1945, in his hometown of Shizuoka. That story of the Blackened Canteen has been retold many times. It also appears in a line of a book by that name. Today's honored guest is Council General and Mrs. Mizawa. Council General Mizawa assumed his duties here in July of this year. He is a graduate of Kyoto University, Faculty of Law. He joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 1985, has worked overseas in Japanese embassies in Canada and Germany. He most recently held the title of Deputy General in the Middle Eastern and African Affairs Bureau. We are honored to have Mr. and Mrs. Mizawa with us today. Another honored guest is Jack Detour. Mr. Detour is a veteran of 3 wars, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, and also the Cold War. But what is most significant about Mr. Detour is that according to his biography, he flew continuously from the age of 18 until he was 86. First in the military, then for airliners, then for corporate companies. His bio says he always loved flying. And isn't that rather self-evident? Shiro Wakita, who joins us here today, is a veteran of World War II. He was in the Imperial Japanese Navy. He was in the final training phase to be a Zero pilot when the war ended. His training of aircraft to be outfitted for kamikaze missions. So there's no mystery that his first assignment would be following his graduation. He has been an active member of the Urabara Kai, an organization of Yokaran, former students who were drafted from high school directly into the Flying Corps. Mr. Wakita has been a leader in strengthening the friendship between the Urabara Kai and the Pacific Aviation Museum. His English skills make him very valuable commodity in which he engenders respect and affection. Our next honored guest is Ken DeHoff. He is the executive director of the Pacific Aviation Museum, Pearl Harbor. He is a decorated Army officer, Vietnam veteran, and former Cobra pilot. Ken is also the recipient of the Purple Heart for his wounds suffered after being shot down in combat. I would be negligent if I forgot our new superintendent who has recently arrived, Jacqueline Ashwell, and her biography is quite short right now, but building. So, turning it over to my colleague, and I should mention here rather informally, because this is an honored occasion, but my partner for many, many years in this has been Gary Myers, United States Marine Corps, Lieutenant Colonel retired. He anxiously awaits the podium.
Thank you very much, Dan. Some of you here today may not be familiar with the story of the Blackened Canteen. I have reproduced copies of a summary for you to read later. There are also many accounts on the internet, and a book has even been written by Jerry Yellen, who was a former World War II P-51 pilot who has a special link with Japan. His son married a Japanese lady. The story begins with an American bombing over Shizuoka on the night of 20 June 1945, when two B-29s collided from the 314th Bomb Wing, collided in midair, and 23 airmen were lost, along with over 2,000 members of Shizuoka community during the raid. A battered canteen, which appears to bear the handprint of its former owner and shown here on the table, was retrieved from the wreckage by Mr. Fukumatsu Ito. Mr. Ito also buried the dead American airmen, for which he was understandably condemned by his countrymen at the time. They had just undergone a horrendous bombing. But Mr. Ito bore the hatred silently, and he continued to respect the dead airmen and his dead countrymen every year on the anniversary, or close to the anniversary, of the collision and the tragedy. The canteen, filled with bourbon whiskey, has been used in the annual memorial services since the wartime tragedy. The whiskey is poured as an offering to the spirits of the fallen, both Japanese and American. Mr. Ito passed away about 40 years ago, but before he died, he was assured by Dr. Sugano that he would continue the tradition annually in Shizuoka on or near the anniversary of the tragedy. And Dr. Sugano has continued that tradition since 1972, and always on his own dime, at his own expense. He is supported by the Japanese and the American military in Japan, and by the American Embassy in Japan. They always send representatives to Shizuoka for the event. And I have had the pleasure and the honor of attending several times. Dr. Sugano has also been invited by the National Park Service to conduct the ceremony here during Commemoration Week for the last few years, and for which he is deeply appreciative, and we at the Aviation Museum are deeply appreciative, because we need to get that message out, that the suffering in wartime can be healed over time, and it obviously has been as a result of us being here today with the Consul General and Mrs. Misawa from Japan, as well as high-ranking American military, National Park Service, and guests from all over the world. The battered canteen, which rose from the ashes of a wartime tragedy, has since become the inspiration for peace. Its blackness and its heat-distorted shape represent the inevitability of conflict. It will always be there. Yet its presence represents eternal hope for a future of peaceful understanding and reconciliation between former enemies. It is a symbol of the good that can arise from tragedy, and it's also a symbol of the courage and determination of one man. Dr. Sugano likes to think that Mr. Fukumatsu Ito's spirit remains always beside him and the Blackened Canteen. Thank you very much, Dr. Sugano, Consul General Mrs. Misawa. It's an honor for us to have you here today, sir.
Yes. Before we introduce the first speaker, I'd like to also take note that a great friend of the park, or as we now say, the monument, is here. She has been a reservoir for reconciliation and sharing the Japanese-American experience. Sitting among us is that champion, Yoshi Tanabe. Ms. Tanabe, thank you. Emotion is a key part of remembrance. It comes to me quickly and often. With that in mind, those veterans that can tell us the story of that experience, I would like to introduce Jack Detour.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me? Then Ohio gozaimasu. I'm honored to represent the United States Air Force Airmen and to participate with Mr. Waikita today at this ceremony. Although we were in opposite in the World War II, I think we can agree that we jointly agree with the peaceful surrender and peaceful ending of World War II. My combat began in New Guinea, flying B-25s at ship-top level and at treetop level. We moved then into the Philippines, and after the Philippines, we were on Okinawa when the war ended. Less than half of the airmen that I went to war with survived. I was one of the lucky ones. I'm grateful to Mr. Ito for the respectful manner that he buried our B-29 pilots and aircrew members. I'm also grateful to Sugano for continuing this Blackened Canteen ceremony. And I think I am mostly thankful for the peace and friendly relationship that we now enjoy. Thank you.
Another World War II veteran, Mr. Wakita.
Wakita-san.
Wakita-san, you're wanted at the podium.
Thank you. ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。
Good morning, sir. I am honored to represent the Unabara Kai at this ceremony today, and also to participate with Mr. Jack Dutel. We are on opposite side during Pacific War, but now we are on same side today. Both of us committed to the cause of peace and reconciliation. I also want to thank Dr. Sugano for his dedication to keeping alive and spreading the history of Ito-san and the Blackened Canteens. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mr. Ken DeHoff.
Daniel and I have something in common. And Yoshi Tanabe was the individual that brought us both together. Yoshi stood up and challenged both of us on a very interesting point of history. And Daniel and I'd say, took some swords over that, and we've survived it. And we have grown in friendship with the Japanese community, with Yoshi Tanabe, with the National Park Service, and with the Pacific Aviation Museum. Daniel, thank you so much for you showing emotion. I stand here in honor of Admiral Ronald Hayes.
And Dan, and everybody. I never expected something like this, and when I see your faces and the young people over here, all I can tell you is...
You got to use the microphone.
All I can tell you, all of you, is please, please, we cannot continue this, yeah? So these guys, I'm telling you, if one little person like me can do something, then you guys can, go to college, get your education, work hard, buy everything cash and carry. Don't use your... I really mean that, and build your character, yeah, and let's work for peace, because I'm worried right now about our world. I'm worried about our young people, that you guys have to go through the same thing we old people did. We don't want you to. So I tried our best, yeah? So you folks, please try your best also. And you guys, no. Let me go back. Thank you, yeah?
Thank you,
and all of you, we can, go back to your places, yeah? And open your mouth like I do. And try your best. Thank you.
Thank you, Yoshi. Admiral Ron Hayes was chairman of the board of the Pacific Aviation Museum for 10 years. Admiral Hayes brought this Blackened Canteen ceremony to the United States with Dr. Sugano. And I'm grateful to stand in Admiral Hayes' stead to talk about the importance of the Blackened Canteen and what Dr. Sugano has done. The ceremony is one of peace and reconciliation and remembrance. It's an opportunity for us to look back at what has happened and where we are today. My role as a director of a museum is to make sure that we have that history preserved. It parallels what the National Park does and what National Park represents here with memorials like we are on today. For 43 years, Dr. Sugano has taken a Blackened Canteen and shared that symbol of peace and reconciliation with communities like we have here this morning. And I want to thank you for doing that, Dr. Sugano. Thank you to the National Park and Daniel Martinez. Thank you to the United States Air Force and Jack Detour. Thank you so much for you as this a community for being here with us. Dr. Sugano, your tireless efforts have been an inspiration to me and to the museum. In 2004, you were recognized by the United States and Ambassador to Japan, Carolyn Kennedy. Shizuoka was selected to receive a group of dogwood trees as a gift from the United States, a part of the friendship program that was established on the centennial of the gift of the cherry trees to the United States from Japan in 1912. The story of the Blackened Canteen was used by the city as justification for applying for those trees. One of those dogwoods now grow on the grounds of the temple at the base of the mountain where that wartime tragedy occurred. And another dogwood tree was planted beside the American and Japanese monument on the top of that hill. The remaining dogwoods are planted in the city park to, again, stand and show our need for peace and to watch those trees grow in peace. Together, we now stand as a symbol not only of friendship, but as a reminder that one person can make a difference. Dr. Sugano, your dedication to make this happen and this cause is admirable. You have made a difference. It's an honor for the Pacific Aviation Museum to participate in this ceremony, to be a partner with Japan, with the United States, with the National Park, and with Dr. Sugano. Thank you so much. Aloha.
We are honored to have Dr. Sugano come up for a few comments.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much to attend this morning ceremony. When Pearl Harbor attack, I was only 8 years, a second class elementary school boy. Our Japanese people very, very excited about Pearl Harbor attack. But I had anxiety because we know United States is very, very big and toughness country. Anxiety became true after 4 years, 1945, June 20th. Our city was bombed by 123 B-29s. All Shizuoka city was burnt out, and about 2,000 people burned in death. And that time, during their mission, 2 B-29 crashed and down over bombing Shizuoka, and 23 pilots died. I ran to the crash site next morning. No pilots alive. It was very, very shock. That time, Mr. Ito, he was a Buddhist. He believes that dead person should be treated equally. So he built 2 monuments on the Mount Shizuhata in Shizuoka. One is for dead P-29 crew monument, and another one for victims of Shizuoka citizens. Many years after, I come back to Shizuoka city. I became a doctor and found 2 monuments on the Sengen Hills. Very, very surprised. And I met Mr. Ito to consult U.S.-Japan Joint Memorial Service. I had been holding since 1972 with Mr. Ito. After Mr. Ito died, I have been holding. And sometimes I visited Pearl Harbor, maybe a 50th anniversary of Pearl Harbor attack. I was shocked to visit this Arizona Memorial. And many Americans and many Japanese, especially Buddhist Ara and Ongawa-san, and come back to Shizuoka. I want to long time to hold same style memorial service in Arizona, because that Blackened Canteen only an article of dead B-29 crew. Once a year in Shizuoka city, that canteen filled with bourbon American whiskey and pouring whiskey overhead of B29 monument. So long time I want to hold this ceremony. Many American assisted and many Japanese assisted to this ceremony. So today I'm very, very honored to attend this ceremony. Please pouring bourbon whiskey, just like Shizuoka ceremony. I think we mustn't forget there are many sacrifices of both countries behind to the peace. So I think hate cannot be eliminated by hate. I hope this ceremony will become one step of world peace. Thank you. May God bless you, all of participants. Thank you.
Individuals that will be with us for the pour. The pour, by the way, will be done in 2 phases. Phases with those that just recently spoke, except the second pour will be the veterans. And they will do the second pour in following us. So I ask that all of us that are involved in this pour, that are in the front row,
What a moment in history. History coming from the conjunction of 2 words. It's his story. And we're here filling the pages of God's story. And in that final chapter of what he prepares, promises for those that believe in him, is in that final chapter. It's on peace, the peace that I give unto you. So honored guests, those who have special memories of this event in their personal lives, and indeed those that we honor on this auspicious occasion. I'm reminded of an Allied cemetery in India where many servicemen are buried. And as you go into that cemetery, there's a big sign over the gate that says, when you go back home, tell those you love that we gave our todays for your tomorrows. And so it is, O God, that we, in achieving those tomorrows, fortunate enough to have them for what others have provided, it became possible for those 23 men who fought their lives in the defense of the freedoms we now enjoy and the understanding of our nation's agreement. We gather here today, O God, in the recognition of that freedom that we enjoy in our daily lives,
have not really having been free, but it's been paid for by the heavy, heavy price of loss, pain, and death. As we reflect on the contributions of that crew of those two B-29s here, 70 years later, we pay tribute to their courage for all of their notable deeds, their noble service, their generous commitment to the democracies for which we now together stand. May the families of those whom we honor here have that faith that can sustain them in their grief and loss. May they find comfort in the knowledge that the lives of their loved ones were not in vain, but they achieved the highest recognition of life in laying down their lives for others. What greater commitment could one make? A grateful nation expresses its appreciation today, O God, for bestowing upon these men the comforting words of him who proclaimed, "Well done, my good and faithful servants." And so on this occasion, O Lord, may we use our tomorrows of these warriors as a means of rededicating ourselves to those principles that encourage peace among the people as well as the nations of the world. We sense that life is a mystery for all the things that we do not understand, O God, but we do understand all of the things that can come to us when we work together for good. When the cause for which we stand is right and in keeping with your will. May the people we honor today be able to recognize that living spirit of their service and sacrifice have had a major role in the reconciliation of that conflict of the past. And once again, on this anniversary day that brings us here to honor men we have not known, but we do know of their commitments, a commitment to a cause that assures them of their tomorrows in that land from which Shakespeare says no traveler has yet returned, but yet within our faith is ever real. The symbolism of the pouring of the whiskey in the sacred waters surrounding this USS Arizona, O God, confirms to us that the word whiskey comes from the Irish Gaelic word meaning the water of life. The water of life. Life that did not terminate in an aircraft disaster, but lives that live in our memories for a service that provides for us our many tomorrows. Tomorrows that enable us to right the wrongs of the world. Tomorrows to sustain governments that make us proud to be a part of a family in peace and in love. And a tomorrow to glorify him in the name of him and all the religions of the world, that righteousness exalteth nations. So may the Lord continue to bless those in their weakness. May the Lord find strength in all of us in our sorrow and loss, and to find comfort. And in our humanity, as a tribute to our fellow heroes, we seek and find the resolution that can bring peace. So may the Lord bless those whom we honor here today. May the Lord make his face to shine upon all those that trust in your will, and may the light of that countenance be with them. And so we go forth in the name of that peace and the knowledge of that love that knows no end. Peace, and God be with you always.
We have come together once again. Probably this ceremony has grown in its importance and its participation. That is thanks to a good friend, Gary Myers, and our partners, Ken DeHoff at the Pacific Aviation Museum, and those National Park Service employees that supported this event. Not far from us is the Missouri, and on that battleship, peace was signed. For many years, with the occupation of Japan and the final documents in San Francisco, Japan now took on its own future. That future has brought us here, 70 years of peace. To have the Consul General here, representing the Japanese Navy, something I thought would be impossible when I came here in 1985. We celebrate this day because of all of the words that you heard expanded upon and described this renewed friendship with Japan. For our veterans, you're treasured and honored. And as so Douglas MacArthur once said, these proceedings are closed.